So there's a staffing crisis in the United States in healthcare. So I taught people how to use LinkedIn to recruit people from community colleges.
Hmm.
And it's an organic way for companies that don't have a strong marketing budget to growth hack their staffing crisis.
Welcome to the Marketing Expedition Podcast, an auditory journey through the latest in marketing, branding, and advertising. Now, here's your Marketing Expedition guide, Ray Allen.
On this episode of the Marketing Expedition Podcast, I get to speak with Peter Murphy-Lewis, and he's the founder of strategicpete.com and a fractional chief marketing officer who helps CEOs turn overwhelming marketing data into clear paths for revenue and growth. His expertise spans industries like software, travel, media, even zoos and banks, which are more alike than you might think. Peter has hosted 2 TV shows, recently produced and narrated a documentary, and leads his unique life from a literal zoo where he lives with his family. Known for his innovative approach, Peter specializes in building resilient, high-performing teams and aligning marketing efforts with measurable success. But first, it's time for your Marketing Essentials moment, the basics that you need to help you continue to build your brand and your bottom line. The topic I wanted to cover, and maybe we'll do a multiple part series here, is when working with an agency, what you can expect as a client. And the reason this has kind of been prompted is because we're seeing a shift in what client expectations are, and sometimes they're just unrealistic. So I wanted to cover some of the things that you could expect if you were to become a client of ours or of any agency, just thinking through that. And maybe you have an agency and you're listening to this, and it's a good reminder to set client expectations. And so we want to just cover some of the basics that kind of help in that relationship that we build with our clients, because we both want to see success with our clients, right? And so the things that we can think about in building those client expectations and onboarding a new client and what that looks like and the education that it might take to work with a new client. And it really kind of depends on the client. If they've ever had worked with an agency previously, or if they're sort of brand new to working with an agency and need to understand how it works exactly and why it works the way it does and what we're expected to do from the agency side versus kind of the division of duties of what the client's expected to do, because it does work in tandem and it's a collaborative effort. You can't just solely rely on your agency to make sure that your marketing and sales are completely getting done, or, building the brand, but also driving leads and all of the different tactics that you could potentially take, and understanding what does success look like, thinking with the end in mind and working backwards. What does it mean to work with an agency and feel good about what you're spending your money on, right? And it really, ultimately we need to think about what are our objectives of what we want to accomplish together, and what is it? Are we trying to, drive website traffic? Are we trying to, drive e-commerce sales? Or, what are we basing everything off of the price and the product, or is there service that you're wanting to make sure that everyone knows about? Are we simply building brand awareness so that they could even, know who you are, your end user know who you are specifically? Are you a brand new business where you need to educate and make people aware of the fact that you even exist? Are we trying to build email databases? Are we generating sales leads, which is a whole different way of going about the whole entire campaign? That is really has the whole media mix of being able to build awareness so that they could even then go through the sales funnel and even have consideration or even know about you, right? So generating sales leads is not something that happens just overnight. And so I really want people to understand that. Are we trying to drive foot traffic? Are you a destination location? Are we trying to grow your local market share or regional market share or national market share? What is it that we're wanting to accomplish? Are we just simply building a reputation? Are there some things that are happening in your business or that did happen in your brand and business that maybe needs some reputation management that could help build good sentiment again if it's needed. Or even if you do have good sentiment, sometimes we still need to build the reputation more so that more people know about you and hear you and can learn about you because they've been exposed to your brand, or they have had some sort of experience visually or audibly. I'm saying 17 to 22 times now before they may even recognize that they've even heard or seen of you before. And so sometimes it takes that long just to be able to get them to even have consideration to then eventually, ideally, go down the funnel and convert. So if we're really honest with what is happening and your goals are to, drive revenue and build your bottom line, then there's a number of things that we have to go through in order to make that happen. And there's not just one magic, wand that's going to make it all happen, right? It's not just one tactic that we're going to take. It's the whole mix of everything. And we need to really understand what your needs are and how we're going to best serve you. And understanding that marketing is absolutely a marathon, not a sprint. It's not an overnight, game that we play, then you're magically going to wake up with, thousands and thousands of new clients in the door, right? So thinking it through all of those different things that we do when we first want to work with an agency, and we want to get to know what your priorities are and what you're already maybe doing to help you continue to grow. What do we need to do? We're going to look at the marketing audit and we're going to understand what we want to stop, start, keep, or tweak doing. So there's some homework involved when we first work together. We want to know who your competitors are. We want to investigate and do a competitive analysis. We want to know what your niche or what niches you have within each segment of your business, or if you have multiple segments and multiple audiences that you're targeting within each of those segments. We want to know all of those things. We want to understand what the value is to you with your end users, your customers, how they perceive the value that you supply to them, whether it's a product or a service, or if you're a nonprofit, why are donors wanting to donate to you? What's the cause? What's the reason? And we want to understand what geographic region you may serve. We want to understand who it is that you really want to target, who's your soulmate client and why. We really have to do a lot of digging and investigating and iterative processes to make sure that all of the tactics that we're recommending and suggesting and all of the strategies that we put in place for the campaign are going to be effective, because we know more and more and more about your customer and their journey and their buying journey and how we can get them from consideration to conversion. And then how are you going to continue to serve them so that they're a loyal repeat customer and you're not having, problems with customer attrition or turnover, right? We want to know, how it is that you have already successfully able to get new clients. And if you're a brand new startup, okay, then let's take a look at your competition. What are they doing to get new clients? If it's something that is that you have a brand new product or service that's unlike anything else, well, let's see what is somewhat like what you are doing, what industry you might be serving, or at least looking at the target demographic that you have that could be like something else or complementary to something else that we're already doing, or that we've already done a lot of research on, or maybe you have done a lot of research, and helping really identify with your target soulmate clients that you want to walk through the door and who they are ideally and what the kind of lifestyle is. Like what's the day in the life of them and how do we reach them best? And that's what we investigate with you, and then make those recommendations based on the combination of knowledge that you give us and then what we already have had in experiencing all that we've done in this. And for our case, we've been around for over 2 decades now. So we want to combine our experience with your knowledge of your industry already to make sure that what we're proposing and pitching and doing for you is going to be highly effective based on all of the due diligence that we're doing up front. And when we go through that process, it is the best thing that you can do to set us all up for success, because then we have a full understanding of what your goals are and how we're going to reach them and what your budget is. And we also need to have those conversations about what kind of budget you're going to be spending on your marketing. And depending on what industry you're in, there could be a range of how much you're going to spend on your marketing budget, anywhere from, 2 to 5% if you're in specific industries, or if you are in a really competitive industry, you might be spending 7 to 8% of your total revenue in marketing. And so, just thinking about what that looks like, and you know what, startups, it could be 20% of your projected revenue, because you have all of these initial outlay or costs that are going to be something that you need to do as a one-time setup, or one-time build out of your website, or one-time build out of your trade show booth, for example. All of these are going to be some one-time costs that then, of course, you have some ongoing maintenance and those types of things. But upfront, initially, for your initial injection, you could be thinking of even more than that, just depending on what it is that you're trying to accomplish and how quickly. Obviously, the more we spend, the quicker we can, do all the things that we need to get done. But I get it. People have, they don't always have an unlimited budget, which would be nice, right? But thinking through all of these, just all the parameters and all the considerations, right? And then thinking about, okay, what prompted me to reach out to somebody like Ray or Peppershock Media or another agency? What is it that I'm trying to get out of it? Is it because, my sales have tanked and my company is on the brink of, disaster? Or is it because I know that I'm being smart and I know that I need to advertise even in the good times, right? And especially in the bad times, right? And so what prompted you to reach out to us? Why do you want an agency? How can you work with us best? And then what are some of the things that, when you have talked to agencies, what are some questions that you have? Think about the questions that you have and the types of industries that they've worked with, the experiences that they've had before. What is it that's going to make a really good fit? So that way your client expectations are met. And even in our case, we love to go above and beyond expectations. So what is it that we can do to make sure that we're a good fit? And then on average, how long do you typically retain your clients? Are they a one and done, or are they long term? Are they going to continuously come back to you? Are they reoccurring clients? Can you have a subscription model? What is it that they spend with you and how often? So that also gives us a lot of insight on what we need to do to acquire those customers. And then once we have them, are they going to stick around? Are they going to continue to spend? Or is this a campaign that we need to do where we're just, burning and churning new clients every time because it's just a one and done? So ideally, we can help you set the stage for return, repeat, loyal clients that then help spread the word and share with others, right? That's what we want, so that we can reduce the amount that it takes to acquire those customers, but then increase the value that they spend with you on an ongoing basis and even longer than maybe what you're experiencing now, so that you can retain them and continue to earn revenue from all of the upfront efforts it takes to then acquire them as customers, right? And so then other things to consider: what do you think makes a campaign that you do with an agency successful? And let me tell you, if it's just, oh, well, I need ROI and leads, that's one aspect of the entire campaign. But when we're building brands to make that consideration even happen, to make that education happen, leads are not always the number one thing that's going to be a result of that. I mean, ultimately down the road, yes, but it's not an overnight thing. And so I always caution those who just want to come to us and say, well, I just need to get an ROI, I just need leads. That's great. We can help you get leads, but we also need to build your brand up so that people will want to work with you, who will then trust you, right? Those that they all want is, the know, like, and trust factor. If they've heard of you, they've seen you, they've had other people talking about you through word of mouth advertising and accelerating word of mouth advertising, all of these factors are going to help determine the success of your campaign and the success of how much revenue is going to then be returned on your marketing investment. And it does take time. It really takes time. There's a learning phase that has to happen, right? We get all the assets and all the creative made and delivered, and then now we can then take that and put those into application through ads and platforms, and yes, form fills for leads and all those things. But you have to test them and be willing and able and ready to understand that it's a learning process that happens. I mean, some machine learning and AI can be used to help assist with that, but every client we have is unique. Every brand that we work with has its own differentiating factors. Ideally, that's what we want. We want to have some differentiating factors. And what might work for one brand is not always going to work for another brand. And so, really leaning in and trusting your agency to give you the recommendations, to do the iterative process, to test the messaging, to test the platforms that we're using and who we're reaching that message to, and really understanding that those metrics do take time to build, right? We can have a baseline to start with, but then as we go and grow and iterate and do more to then continuously hone and refine, that takes time. It is not going to happen overnight, and that's one thing that I think setting client expectations really can help if people understand that it does take some time to make sure that we are doing everything that needs to happen in order to make your campaign successful. And just relying on organic social media, folks, is not the only thing that's going to work. We have to pay to play. We have to be able to boost and sponsor and promote and share and show and tell and do lots of things in a lot of different mediums to be able to then reach that ideal client target that you're after. Because remember, I'm saying 17 to 22 times that you need to put your brand in front of somebody before they may even acknowledge or recognize that they've ever even heard of you before. Now, sure, there's things that accelerate that by word of mouth and people talking about it and sharing about it. But if you are truly just trying to rely on an organic, non-paid advertising play, it's going to take you a really long time to gain that traction. So thinking about how you can spend the money in the best ways possible and working with us to do that and sharing your goals. I love it when clients want to share in those goals. They want to share revenue goals with us because we want to see what performance is happening and how it's happening. And maybe there's some trigger points when, you hit this revenue goal, then we're going to do XYZ that we've already put in the plan that we could then trigger and say, okay, now that we've hit this revenue goal, now we can afford to do this other tactic that we've had to put on hold for a moment until we could hit that revenue goal. And then there's performance factors that really help with that, right? So those are some things that I can help you navigate as you consider working with an agency, especially if you've never worked with an agency before. Continue to listen to these marketing essential moments. I'm going to dig into some other components of what it's like and what you can expect as a client and how you can work best with your agency. No matter who you are, no matter where you are, that communication factor is going to be key in your success. So once again, we will continue going through this, but now it's time for your interview, and I can't wait to see you next time. Welcome to the Marketing Expedition podcast. I'm your host, Ray Allen. I'm the president and CEO of Peppershock Media and the founder of the Marketing Expedition community. And today's guest, we have Peter Murphy-Lewis joining us. Welcome to the show, Peter.
I'm happy to be here, Ray.
Excellent. Well, I like to just share with our audience a little bit more about you. We'll have the bio and all that earlier, but tell us a little more about what you do and how you got to where you are now.
I'll tell you the exciting, fun stuff in the first 30 seconds, and then I'll tell you the professional afterwards. So I live in the middle of a zoo. I live in Wichita, Kansas with my wife and my son. I lived 15 years in South America. And when I'm not working as a marketer or running my business, I do TV shows and documentaries. The professional side, how I got where I am, I started my own travel company in South America in 2007. I just sold that last year, and over time got into a fractional CMO role. So I work with 2 to 6 clients at any given time. And then I have a marketing team behind me that helps with execution.
Wow, I love that. That's congratulations on selling your business, though. That's pretty exciting, right?
Yeah, it feels great.
Okay, so you say that you work with 2 to 6 clients at any given time as a fractional CMO. Let's explain a little bit to people what a fractional CMO is exactly for those that don't already know.
Yeah, it's a newish term,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a newest concept in the kind of executive space. So a chief marketing officer, a CMO, is someone who's going to work on, a medium to large size team, probably someone who's doing north of $5 million in revenue, probably somewhere between 10 and 20 to be honest. Their salary is going to be anywhere from 250 to 500. But there's a lot of fast growing companies that are below $3 million in revenue who need the strategy of a chief marketing officer, but they don't need the salary of a chief marketing officer.
Mm.
So a fractional CMO is someone who has 100% of the expertise of guiding strategy, but you pay 10, 15, 25% of the salary.
Right, because they're full time and you're not on, their salary staff.
Mm-hmm.
You are a contractor to them, kind of
Yeah.
a work for hire scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can, like you said, have the team behind you or work with people who can fulfill and execute. That's, what we have on our team to fulfill and execute. I get
Right.
that. And that's great. And then the benefit, like you said, is that they don't have to pay as much as what they would if they were to hire you full time, which is also
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
Have you found that the clients that you work with, have they outgrown you at any point where they do have to hire somebody eventually? Is that kind of like an end goal for you to get them to a point where they can hire somebody? Or, do you continuously work with them for years how does it work for that kind of
So,
transition?
so I have 3 clients that I have taken a step back, and I have put a middle manager in the role that I had. So I'll set up the
Mhm,
strategy. I'll do, somewhere between 20 to 50% of more exploratory tactics in the first year,
mhm.
and make sure that their funnel is kind of completely mapped out and in place. And then I will take a step back, and that step back might be moving from 10 hours a week back to 1 hour a month, and just going to a leadership or executive call once a month.
Mhm.
That is the common scenario that people do. I do have people come say, "Hey, I have a mid-level manager. I want you to coach that person up. Can we set up milestones of where that person's going to be?" And then they do grow out of my engagement, and that usually happens somewhere between 6 to 12 months. That's
Mhm.
also a fair percentage of my clients.
I love that model. In some cases, it's nice to kind of work yourself out of, the overall role and get somebody else to step in. And now, the people that step in, are they on your team, or have you helped them hire somebody to kind of
Both.
step in? Okay.
Both. So my
Mm.
most recent VC backed company, they had kind of an entry level marketer, and I kind of trained that person up and left somebody from my team there. And
Mm.
then in other instances, I've had someone start off with no marketing team. They just fired their mid level marketer. I brought in a brilliant intern from their hometown. They wanted someone in office. I trained
Mhm.
that person up remotely, and then I disengaged.
Nice. Okay. That sounds like a really good system.
Yeah.
For people to be able to
But
have the
I
strategy behind it and the brains behind it.
Yeah, I
And
just finished. I've just finished a book on that system. It'll be coming out in the next couple weeks, and it's a playbook. It has downloadables. It has videos for you to watch, and it's called Interns to A Players. So that is the system that I'm probably most known for with my clients.
Oh, I love that. Interns to A players. Okay, we're gonna have to
Yeah,
put that in the show notes. That's
yeah,
great. So, Peter, can we talk about some of the successes that you've had? And you can choose to name clients if you'd like, but some of the successes, or you can just be general. But what what kind of occurred? How did you help them? What were some of the strategies that you implemented? Dig into one of your clients that you kind of care to share about. What happened?
yeah. Sure. I'll kind of jump between a couple different ones. One of my longest clients that I've played this fractional role with, and I started off full time and then moved into the fractional role, is a high end, very premium wildlife resort. It's called Tanganyika Wildlife Park. That's where I told you where at the beginning where I live. So I started here as to build out their team in 2020. They asked me to come in for 3 months and then extend that to 6 months. And then I disengaged and just moved into a
Mhm.
strategy role. And we've 2x their revenue, we've 10x their reach. They moved from the best wildlife park in Kansas to top 5 in the country,
Wow.
and done that through amazing social media, through Google Grant, through new rebranding. Their price when I started here in 2020, I think, was $25, and now it's a high-end resort,
Nice.
and tickets are going to be north of $100.
Okay. Wow. That is impressive. So let's dig in a little bit more. How did you help make this happen specifically? Like, you mentioned social media, but give me more details if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I would say the first thing that we did well was we took advantage of their amazing customer service and their amazing product. So
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do anything with how well they take care of animals or how well they take care of their clients.
Mm-hmm.
But what I was able to do with the team and the COO and the CEO was to take that great product and that great customer service and grow up that reach. They have a nonprofit branch, so we applied and got them Google Grant. We 3x'd their traffic through SEO, grew their traffic through TikTok and YouTube. If you look up Tanganyika Wildlife Park, you're going to see on TikTok millions of views on certain things. So they've just, and I don't take credit for that, but I've been part of the strategy as we grow. My wife oversees the majority of their PPC. So all of that, and obviously we're involved with their attribution and their marketing stack. And so just from my point of view, it's strategy high level, and then, across different levers and triggers as they need it.
I love that. We're a husband and wife team too. My husband and I, at Peppershock, we started the business 21 years ago together, and I love to hear other people who get to work together too. It's not always for everybody, but it's definitely it's got some great benefits to being able to work together.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you guys always worked together?
No. So she and I met in South America when I was about 3 years into my first business, and we didn't work together. And then when about 6 years later, I brought her into sales in my company, and she worked under my business partner, and I stayed in marketing, and he stayed in sales, and she worked with him, and she got
Mhm.
trained up there. And then when we moved to the US and we started this for this marketing agency and fractional CMO company, she took over my role at the zoo in PPC. So when I disengaged, I got completely hands off except for strategy, and she
Mhm.
took over 75% of that execution.
Nice. I love that. That's
Yeah.
awesome. And you're still married and still talking about it, still together.
Yeah, she probably doesn't want me to say that she's an intern to A player. She was an A player, so I was given an A player as an intern, and then just
Oh,
passed her the reins.
there you go. I love that. Good man. Good man. Yeah, you'll have to make sure she gets to hear this.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, Peter, let's give another example. I love just hearing how people go through their marketing journeys and, things that were effective and maybe some things that you tried that didn't always work, but then you tweaked it and made it work. Or, what did you kind of help people do to stop, start, keep, or tweak to
Hmm.
make things flow and go? And, give me another example and just share your journey along the way.
Yeah, I have one that has some kind of failure along the way that's pretty fun. So I got recruited into a large enterprise software as a service SaaS company that was in the healthcare space in 2020, the end of
Mhm.
2020. And they didn't have much of a marketing team. They had to rip band-aids off the sales team, and it was a company that was a distressed asset that was picked up by private equity. And so we were brought in to rebrand and turn it around and then sell it. And we didn't have much time. We were totally had about a year and a half to 2 years max to do it. And when I came in, I had no experience in software before. I signed up for amazing platforms with consultants who gave me their time, called like Growth Mentor and Rhodium and Dynamite Circle, and all of these communities kind of trained me up on how to market for high-end software. I mean, our software was $20,000 to $150,000 a year. And
Wow.
that, you can imagine, that sales cycle is not only long, but it was right in the middle of COVID. I was hired in November of 2020. There weren't conventions, and it was in the healthcare industry of long-term care. So nursing homes were more closed than everything else in the United States. So I didn't understand expensive software. I had never worked in healthcare, I'd never done anything HIPAA compliant, and I couldn't go see my client. So I didn't know what to do. I learned SEO on the fly. You can't run ads at that point, right? And during COVID, everyone was spending money on ads. It was a bad time to learn how to do ads for software that costs $150,000 a year. And so that's where I started a podcast, and it wasn't perfect from the beginning. I didn't know what I was talking about. I wasn't the smartest person in the room. I was by far the dumbest person in the room. I felt embarrassed. I said the wrong terminology. It's a very highly regulatory compliant industry. And kind of along the way, I kind of got my chops. I felt comfortable being dumb, and I was good at that. I was good at asking questions and letting everyone else feel smart. And what I would say my learning process was along the way was when I started to get invited to conventions to take my podcast equipment and do live podcasting at the convention. And then I got on the main stage and I did speaking. And kind of the pivot that really marked the difference for me was when I started to, and it was two things. I started to do keynotes that had nothing to do with my industry or even with my product. I did keynotes around LinkedIn. So there's a staffing crisis in the United States in healthcare. So I taught people how to use LinkedIn to recruit people from community colleges. And it's an organic way for companies that don't have a strong marketing budget to growth hack their staffing crisis. And I just became the most helpful person in the room. I wasn't the smartest person in the room, but I was the most helpful person in the room when it was to LinkedIn. And then the second item that I did that was really helpful was I had a smart friend who told me, Peter, don't do your podcast just with executives and CEOs and executive directors. Focus on the frontline caregivers. So I started the podcast to focus on CNAs and med aides and nurses. And that really blew up because from there, I realized I could turn their story into marketing assets for these companies. Because you can imagine, Ray, like a 22-year-old who's a CNA is going to be a lot better the face of a brand of a nursing home than a 60-year-old person who's a little bit burnt out from working in long-term care too long. And that person already knows how to use TikTok, maybe LinkedIn, definitely Instagram. And that ended up teaching people how to use people in their company as personal brands to grow their brand. But that was I just shared with you a year of ups and downs, and I gave you the outcome that was very positive.
Oh, I love that. And I'm thank you for sharing, because sometimes people are always afraid to share things that didn't quite work but you know what, if we're, we're winning and things are going well, right? You're either, winning or learning. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no failure in it. It's that we're learning. And I love that that's the perspective that you take with that and use it. And I also really like that you said not maybe the smartest person in the room, but the most helpful person. And that's definitely, sometimes that's what we need to be. So
I have that conversation all the time with my son. He's 8 years old, and I tell him, I say, there's a lot of things you can't control in life. You can't always control your wealth. You can't always control how long you're going to live, nor how long your parents are going to live. You can't always control who's going to like you, but you can control your attitude. You control how hard you work, your discipline, how you overcome frustration. And I said, I was never the smartest kid in grade school, middle school, high school, college, anything like that. But I was always one of the most helpful. And if you're one of the most helpful, you're always going to have a job. If you always have a job, you can always have a home.
That's awesome.
Want to start a podcast but don't know where to begin? At Poderific, we don't just produce podcasts. We help you create auditory experiences that will captivate your audience. Our state-of-the-art podcast recording studio, powered by Peppershock Media, is designed for creators like you. Record with high-quality equipment supported by our expert team and distribute your podcast across major platforms like Apple and Spotify. Whether you're launching your first episode or you're a seasoned podcaster, we got you covered. Visit Poderific.com today to learn how we can help you produce, record, and share your story with the world. Your podcast deserves to be Poderific.
Okay, so let's change gears just a little bit because you are in marketing. I always love to ask people how they market their own business. And obviously, you're on this podcast. That's one way. But I want to know, what are some tactics that you take to market your own agency and the CMO for hire, fractional CMO services? What are
Mhm.
some things that you're doing in your marketing journey?
Yeah, so I do a lot of LinkedIn. I've doubled down on LinkedIn in the last 3 to 6 months.
Mhm,
And I'm always testing things for myself on
mhm,
LinkedIn that I can do for clients. I
mm,
tend to look most of the time for clients in that could help, could benefit from the playbook that works for me or has
mhm,
worked for a previous
mhm,
client. And so LinkedIn is strong. That's posting 7 days a week, 30 days a month. That's posting a video about 5 days a week, and using automation tools to connect with people that I can help and support. Anyone who's signing up to my newsletter, I'm sending
mhm.
them a DM saying, "What brought you over? How can I help you?" The second thing, I'll pause and see if you have any follow up there. Otherwise, I'll move
Oh,
to PR.
no, this is great. I mean, keep going.
Okay.
I'm learning too.
Yeah. Second thing that I do a lot is PR. So I
Mhm,
have a brilliant team behind me who is constantly pitching me to traditional media. I was in Boston Globe 6 months ago, to new media, Business Insider, um, Marketing Sherpa, working on PR that will build my brand to
mhm,
a 60-year-old who might not understand SEO but reads the Boston Globe, or
mhm,
to a 25-year-old who knows that I'm up on the coming trending Substack newsletters, and I had an interview today. And then what we do with that, because that's not always discoverable, but we work our butts off to then repurpose all of that PR
mm,
across ads, across organic,
mhm.
across LinkedIn and YouTube. And those are the two really strong playbooks. And then the third thing that I would say is more helpful. I mentioned 3 communities that I'm involved in beforehand. I'm constantly proactively reaching out to people in these communities who are saying, "I need help with X, Y, and Z." And then I'm just trying to help them with asking nothing in return. And that brings in a lot of references, a lot of referrals.
That's awesome. And I appreciate that you reuse what you've done and get that out there in multiple different ways because that's great because now you can take that content and repurpose it, reuse it, get it, and it brings you, it makes you look like you're the thought leader in your industry, right? Which you
Hmm.
are, right? So that's good to
Hmm.
continuously get out there. And then the book that you're doing, I mean, that's going to be a fun tool. Is this your first book?
It is my first book. I've
Yeah.
wanted to write a book for about 5 years. The first attempt was a memoir. And although I come across probably very extroverted to you, I don't feel comfortable giving advice to people I don't know based on my life experience.
Mhm.
And so my memoir, I trashed it. And then what I did was I realized, what is one thing that I constantly help people with on a regular basis that has something that's actionable, that's something that people can print that I haven't seen before. And it's kind of the mentoring coaching program that I have to bring interns up and turn them into amazing marketers. And in my entrepreneurship, we're going on 20 years now. In my almost 20 years of entrepreneurship, I've had more than 100 interns work under me, come under my wing, and kind of mentor them up. So I
Mhm.
turned that into a book. At my agency, Strategic Pete, there's about 16 people on my team that are full time. 14 of them were interns with me.
Wow.
Yeah.
We love having interns too. I mean, it's just a good place to be able to get work done, but also train and mold and grow them into, being able to then become hireable, right? Some
Hmm.
of the interns come and they've never even had an office setting or like a work environment yet. And being able to just give them the capability, right? And the confidence to then become what you want them to be.
Right.
That's great. Okay, so a couple more questions here. I always like, because I also do have students who listen to the podcast. I always like to have people give advice to those who are in that position looking for work after they graduate, or maybe they're about to graduate in maybe a semester or two. What advice would you give to these incoming, workforce students that are marketing students or, something related to it? What would you tell them?
I'll give my honest answer at first and then follow it up with I'm sorry and tell you what I would do if I think that you already did what I told you not to. The first one is don't go to college for marketing. If you went to college for marketing, go find the most amazing internship under the most amazing marketer who's going to share all of their secrets, who's a critical thinker, who's a person who's self-aware, a person who's going to let you grow with them, and try to absorb as much as you can from someone who's actually doing strategy and execution as soon as possible.
Okay. So don't go to college. No, I'm kidding.
No,
Maybe.
don't go to college for marketing, is my opinion. I think that you will learn more from a year under Ray or your husband than you will spending, $20,000 to $60,000 a year studying marketing at the university. And for any marketing professors who are offended, I'm sorry. I've seen the students coming out of your school.
Okay. No, I like to bridge the gap between sort of the academic world and the agency world because I am an agency owner and I'm not an academic. I'm not in academia. I never was, but I get to teach an adjunct and give these students, I feel like the real world experience as opposed to like, academic bookwork kind of things,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love to do that for that reason, just because it makes me feel good to be able to share my knowledge and experience with them and, not just have like the traditional education, if you will.
Well, I feel like you are probably the exception. I was an academic for studied my master's and almost finished my PhD, and I was a full time professor. So I don't think that all are bad, but the fact that you run your agency means that I would sign off on you. I don't think academics of marketing who don't run their own company and don't do the day to day should be teaching.
Right. Yeah. I tend to somewhat agree with that too, because
You have to be careful because one of your coworkers has listened to you. They've never worked in a marketing company.
I know. Oh yeah, I'm sure of it. Yeah. I mean, and some of the professors we have worked, one of them has worked at Ford and as the marketing, and marketing director there. So some of them definitely have had some great experiences,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but yeah, there are some that maybe they've just kind of gone the academic track the whole time. And yeah, there is a difference for sure. But I'm so glad that I got your approval that you signed off on me.
Yeah, you got it. And any of my interns can study with Ray.
That's right. There you go. Awesome. Okay, so I think we have a pretty good understanding of who your ideal client is in terms of, where they're at, and they haven't obviously hired their own chief marketing officer internally. But is there a particular area that you are looking to expand in, or like who you want to work with next?
Yeah. So one of the things that I love to do as a creator is help people own the narrative, control the narrative, growth hack how they can create moats around themselves as a brand. So their services, their product, whatever it is, whether it be a zoo, I work with a bank, I've worked with private equity. As I mentioned, I worked with healthcare, electronic healthcare records. I like to create moats around them so that their product and service does not become a commodity. And I can give you some examples where I've done that. I mean, I gave you the example with the podcast, that's close, but something even bigger is I recently produced and filmed and was the host of a documentary. The documentary was filmed in April last year and it came out in October, and it's just blown up. I did it with the Nebraska Healthcare Association, and they wanted to own the narrative after like how people have spoken about nursing homes in the last 15 years, especially since COVID. And we just had Amazon Prime ask us to submit it to them. And then I just found 2 other states who want to do the documentary in 2025. So I'm traveling in
Oh.
10 days to
Mhm.
film a second documentary, and I've trademarked the name. And that is kind of my up and coming project. It's called People Worth Caring About. And I get to show the story of a company through the eyes of and the passion of their employees.
That is such a great, authentic way to share their story. I mean, it's marketing, but it's not like a blatant, ad, right? It's a definite. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's a really great idea. I love it.
Thanks. I mean, I can't take credit for it. So in 2017, I was asked to be a TV host for a show in South America that's very similar to Dirty Jobs, like Mike Rowe.
Oh yeah.
And in that TV show, over 3 years and 3 seasons, I did more than 100 different jobs in Spanish, but like Mike Rowe. And
Wow.
that job where I learned to talk about people's stories through their jobs and through their hard work really transformed who I am and how I approach marketing. And then I brought that back to the US and now going on 3 documentaries.
Wow. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And busy. I feel like, I mean, I know I'm busy with teaching and running an agency, but that's busy.
It is busy. We filmed a TV show here in the U.S. Last summer for 2.5 months, and my wife let me travel the U.S. with my film crew, and didn't come home. And she came out to see me. So I was
Aw.
working as a fractional CMO while filming a TV show on the road.
That's great. Well, and that's the nice thing about being fractional is you can go anywhere and go in, now that people are so used to Zoom or Teams or Google Meet or whatever that you can do it wherever you are.
Yeah.
Very cool. Let's see. Let's go ahead and share with people how they can get a hold of you. And then the book, I know it's coming out. But go ahead and plug some of the good stuff that people need to know.
Yeah, the easiest place is LinkedIn. Peter Murphy Lewis. I believe that I'm the only Peter Murphy Lewis on LinkedIn. Add me as a connection. You don't need to follow me, and send me a DM. Say, hey, I'm friends with Ray. I love her podcast. Send me a message, and I promise I'll reply. If there's anything that I've said that would be helpful to you, I'll give you a free promo code to sign up for Growth Mentor. I'm a paying member there as a mentee, and I'm a mentor there, and I'll give you a free hour. You don't even have to book it with me. And then lastly, if you're not a LinkedIn person, just go check out my website, strategicpete.com.
strategicpete.com. I love it. I like the alliteration too.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I really do appreciate you sharing all of these wonderful ideas that people can use. And then if they, want help from a CMO fractional standpoint, then, we can certainly have them reach out to you and do that too. And I always say there's always so much room for companies to work in, competition isn't really what I think of is everyone's got their expertise, everyone has their capabilities, and there's lots of things that we do that you maybe not do or that your team does or vice versa. So I like to celebrate and support our industry, and what's the saying, like all ships rise in the tide together.
Yeah.
So I love to help promote our people in our industry as much as I can. I really appreciate you being on the show today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Look forward to
Yeah,
meeting you in person one day. Take care.
that would be amazing. All right, for those of you listening, the best thing that you can do for us is share this with others. Give us a review on whatever podcast platform is your choice. And until next time, everybody, enjoy your marketing journey.
Thanks for listening to the Marketing Expedition podcast. Want to continue the journey? Don't miss out on new episodes. Subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. Wouldn't it be great if there was one place you can go to get all the latest information and tips about marketing and advertising? The Marketing Expedition community is that place. People like you gather in our online community to build relationships with others and find the latest marketing trends, tactics, tools, and technology. We help you build your brand and your bottom line. Start your adventure today. Visit themarketingexpedition.com to find out more.